So, about a month ago, we had this event in my city that infested both my hometown itself and my newsfeed like a cancerous malignancy. It's called Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, and was inflicted on us by the YWCA, who hosted the day-long tribute to the laziest transvestites in the world. Over 400 men pranced out that day in September to raise awareness for all of the billions of women who are abused and raped every day by the evil men who live in our man's world and do oppressive man stuff in dark, manly ways. And did we mention that all men are inhuman monsters who brutalize women yet? Because it's one of the subtle messages conveyed on the Walk a Mile website. I mean, to be fair, there are some instances where the site goes a whole paragraph without telling us how men, and it is only men, beat and rape women, and it is only women. But hey, if you're willing to put on a pair of red high heels and debase yourself for the amusement of your ovarian betters, they will graciously permit you to virtue signal for at least a little while and pretend that you're not the theoretical offspring of Jack the Ripper and that smelly trenchcoat guy on the subway. Which may very well be the main thing about the guys that do this that make me want to permanently revoke their man cards. Okay, the second thing. But really, do these idiots not actually realize that they are willingly taking part in something that effectively labels all men as being walking rape machines? Or do they just not realize that walk a mile means them too when it says men? Because by taking part in this so-called charity, they think that they've reached the mythical one good man status that I've heard tell of in stories. Anyways, Walk a Mile is the tragically unaborted brainchild of a man named Frank Baird, and isn't that a face that just screams low-level beta male? See, about 16 years ago, old Frank was lurking out in one of the darker corners of JCPenney with a gorgeous pair of silky red stiletto heels, lovingly slipping them onto his oh-so-delicate tootsies with a pleasured sigh before his wife got back from the women's section, where she was picking out his sexy cocktail dress for the evening, when a young and naive store employee happened to wander over and caught Frank prancing about like an ugly prom night virgin, trying desperately to convince himself that he feels pretty. In a moment of panicked, desperate inspiration, Frank could only think to cry out that he was totally starting a women's charity event where men would walk around in women's clothes for donations, and that he emphatically was not just a pervert who gets off on this kind of thing. Skip ahead 16 years later, and it seems that Frank has been truly committed to sticking to that story. Gathering like-minded fetishists to him, Frank has built his simple taboo pastime into an international organization that conducts events around the world and causes the men who partake to die just a little bit inside. Unless they're lucky enough to come already pre-cucked, like my glorious mayor. Hopefully, soon to be former mayor. Now, my snipes at Mayor Mangina aside, I wasn't being entirely accurate when I said that the Walk a Mile organization conducts events worldwide. More accurately, they allow you to conduct events in their name worldwide. See, Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, while called an organization on their webpage, is actually more a brand. How it works is that if you want to organize such an event for your pet sexual violence cause, you must purchase a license from Frank, or rather Frank's so-called company, a non-profit charitable organization called Venture Humanity Inc., whose name is featured very prominently on their agreement contract, along with nearly every fifth word receiving a trademark brand. Anyways, this license allows you to use the name and logo of Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, and pretty much just that. Well, actually, it's not entirely true. You can also buy merchandise from Frank's non-profit organization, Venture Humanity, which you will then have the privilege of selling at your own event. So, just to be clear, Frank and his creation don't do shit for the money they are being given. They are literally just letting people use this name for a fee. Now, you may think that this seems like some kind of dishonest scam racket, and there's a reason for that, but we'll get to it in a few minutes. First, I want to take a look at this website in and of itself, if you'll indulge me for a moment. Put yourself in her shoes. Each year, an ever-increasing number of men, women, and their families are joining the award-winning Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, the International Men's March to Stop Rape, Sexual Assault, and Gender Violence. Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event is a playful opportunity for men to raise awareness in their community about the serious causes, effects, and remediation to men's sexualized violence against women. And somehow it was decided the best way to do this was by putting on high heels. Not with research or providing facts or doing any actual fucking work. Just men put on these shoes and think of how hard it is to be a woman. Embrace your shame. Imagine how terrifying it must be to constantly fear getting raped, whether it's statistically justified or not. First, you walk the walk. There is an old saying, you can't really understand another person's experience until you've walked a mile in their shoes. Walk a Mile in Her Shoes asks men to literally walk 1 mile in women's high-heeled shoes. It's not easy walking in these shoes, but it's fun and it gets the community to talk about something that's really difficult to talk about: gender relations and men's sexualized violence against women. Okay, first off, how is that difficult to talk about? We talk about it all the fucking time. Hell, we can barely shut you harping feminist bitches up about it. You practically have a little string on the back of your heads that, when pulled, cause you to squawk, "Rah, 1 in 5, rah, 1 in 5." You realize we could sit around all day on the internet and television doing 24-hour broadcasts about the rape epidemic and showing rapes in progress on pay-per-view, and these people would still be certain we aren't talking about the subject enough. No, 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 no. It's sexual violence against men that nobody talks about, which is why it's nowhere to be found on your website. It's why you're not holding a walk a mile in his shoes event, because you don't want to acknowledge that the other side exists. Or if you do acknowledge the other side of the equation, you certainly aren't talking about it. So if the fact that you people and the modern mainstream media do nothing but talk about sexual violence as being a sign of society crumbling, what does how often we talk about men and sexual violence mean? I await your answer. Then you talk the talk. It's critical to open communication about sexualized violence. While hidden away, sexualized violence is immune to cure. Unfortunately, it's difficult to get people talking. No, it fucking isn't. People unfamiliar with men's sexualized violence against women don't want to know it exists. It's ugly. People that have experienced sexualized violence themselves want to forget about it. How do you get people talking now so they can prevent it from happening? And if it's already happened, how do you help them recover? Oh, okay, fuck you. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, and every single one of your kind that constantly attempts to play this bullshit game. This kind of line is actually something of a pet peeve of mine. This pretense that all of these feminist fucks try to go with, that they are trying to have some horrible, incredibly difficult, groundbreaking conversation so they can fuel their own egos. It's just like that idiot journalist from the other day who was talking about the new Star Trek show and praising it for finally having a black person in a leading role. Something which Star Trek has been doing since the first series. Hell, the new chick isn't even the first black main protagonist. That was about 20 years ago. But they all want to pretend that their group is now on the forefront of the conversation. Bold revolutionaries saying the things that no one ever thought of up until this point. Look, these are not new and difficult conversations. You just complicate them by shoving your nonsense in where it doesn't belong so you can draw it out. Because there's no money in solving the actual problems, right? Egocentric douchebags. And again, I will point out that the only solution that they're offering is, guys, prance around in women's shoes and caper for our amusement, monkey man. Anyway, so you can see where this is going. I just wanted to make the point that the usual feminist narrative is at play here. We men are evil monsters that do terrible things to women, but here's a chance that we're giving you to show society that you're different from those other jabbering jabberwocks of rape and molestation by submitting to and debasing yourself for our noble cause. Admittedly, it seems to be a very effective strategy to use. But here is the more important bit that knackered my knickers. Not just a women's issue. Here, sexualized violence does not just affect women. It affects the men who care about them, their families, their friends, their coworkers, and their communities. Sexualized violence is epidemic. Some of the statistics. Every 2 minutes, someone in America is raped. How many of those are men? 1 in 6 American women are victims of sexual assault. And again, how many men? That means someone you know, someone you care about, has been or may become the victim of sexual violence. Just, not if he's a man. It may be your mother, your sister, your friend, your girlfriend, your wife, your coworker, or your daughter. Yes, guard and fear for your women. The rapacious Jew and the Negro with his horse-like genitalia are on the prowl constantly, and they love themselves some white Aryan women. How am I the only one who remembers this sort of thing? Anyways, it's the stats that I was really interested in. Now, their statistic actually links to a broken link to Rain's website and statistics, so I actually had to go to Rain's website and find what it actually says. Rain is the rape and incest national blah 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 blah, and they are considered to be among the big mainstream experts on the subject of rape and sexual abuse. So surely we'll get some good and accurate data from them, he said in the traditional anti-feminist tone, which indicated that such a thing would not in fact be shown to be true. Looking at the statistics on Rain's site, they more or less match up to what the Shoes website is claiming. So let's take a moment to look at some of Rain's statistics. So, Walk a Mile states that 1 in 6 women will be raped or sexually assaulted in their lifetime, which, according to Rain, is true. Right below, however, I also couldn't help but notice that they say that 3% of men in America have been raped or sexually assaulted, which seems rather low to me. So I did what I do and took a look at Brain's source, namely a report issued by the CDC and the National Institute of Justice. And they do certainly show that roughly only 3% of men are raped. That is, if you do what they did and define rape thusly. Rape was defined as an event that occurred without the victim's consent that involved the use or threat of force to penetrate the victim's vagina or anus by penis, tongue, fingers, or object, or the victim's mouth by penis. The definition included both attempted rape and completed rape. So, they only counted penetration as rape, meaning that any man who was made to penetrate a woman was not included as having been raped. Because when one does such a thing, you actually get roughly equal numbers of rape between men and women, as both perps and victims. And there will be some links in the low bar to articles and videos explaining in much greater detail so that I don't have to take the time to cover something that everybody and their kitty cat has been covering for years. But here's the killing blow, children. This study that Rain is citing as one of its claims was done in 1998. Rain is supposed to be the Mac Daddy of knowledge on all things rapey, and not only are they using biased and dishonest studies and surveys, they're using ones from 20 fucking years ago. Especially amusing, in a head slammed in the car door kind of way, since right above that statistic, they cite another statistic, saying that the rate of rape and sexual assault has dropped by 63% between 1993 and 2015, meaning that their own cited statistics take their other cited statistics out behind the woodshed and gives them both barrels. Even if the 1 in 6 number had ever been accurate low those 20 years ago, it's nowhere close to being accurate now, Rain. I get the feeling this is why Rain only lists where they got their stats from, but provides no direct links to the actual studies. They're afraid people might actually start to compare notes. Dismissing this little aside for now, I'd like to go back to Frank for a moment, and my promised comments about his little funding thing that he does with Walk a Mile. When someone pays to use the branding logo for the Walk a Mile event, that money goes to an organization called Venture Humanity Incorporated, a non-profit organization set up and created by Frank in 2008. And it takes that money and then does...
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
Pretty much, as near as I can tell. Venture Humanity is listed as a charitable organization, and its tax exemption description classifies it as a community health center. But I cannot find a single reference to anything they actually do or have done, except for rake in the mad bucks. Venture Humanity managed to take in over $50,000 last year in donations and contributions. Their operating costs are listed as only being half of that. So that's just about 25 grand in pure profit for the person that is controlling all of that money. That person being Frank, who is also registered as the organization's only employee. Which makes me wonder exactly how the fuck their operating costs are $25,000 a year. But I'm sure there's a perfectly normal, non-criminal reason for that. And again, I cannot find any reference to anything that they are doing with this money. For that matter, Venture Humanity doesn't even have a website. In fact, there is almost no digital footprint at all for this so-called charitable organization. There is certainly money coming in, but where exactly it's going other than Frank's bank account is beyond me. Now, I do have some financial records of Frank's organization that I've been going over, as well as some tax reports. Unfortunately, they are all effectively in another language to me. Myself being an English student, numbers were never really my forte. The best that I can tease out of this financial information is that Venture Humanity reports that almost all of the money that they are taking in is the result of their sales of the Walk a Mile logo and merchandise, along with various third-party donations. But none of it is coming out, at least not in any recognizable form. Now, I'm not saying that Frank is a con artist who's trying to cash in on people's misdirected goodwill and stupidity to rack up his own bank account and get undeserved praise and accolades, but, well, yeah. To lastly make my point and bring this to a close, I would like to show Frank's main business venture. Frank's main calling in education is as a family therapist, but more than that, he is a certified mindfulness facilitator, which he promotes and teaches through co-founding Now House, basically a school or community center or whatever you want to call it, that offers courses and workshops in mindfulness to teach people how to have a better and more fulfilling life. Now, when I first started doing this, I had never heard of this mindfulness thing, despite it apparently being a booming trend over the last few years, and rather than explain it myself, I think I'll let the Mindfulness Institute, which apparently is actually a thing, describe it themselves. Mindfulness refers to a state of being fully present in the present moment. With acceptance and without judgment, mindfulness is ubiquitous, a natural part of being human that has been cultivated and practiced for over 2,600 years in various traditions around the world. Scientific studies, oh, don't get me started on scientific studies, have demonstrated mindfulness practice to benefit a variety of psychological and physical conditions, as well as to have measurable positive effects on the brain. Due to its benefits, mindfulness is increasingly being integrated into education, medicine, and the workplace.
What we practice grows stronger. The monk explained to me that if I was meditating with judgment, I was just growing judgment. Meditating with frustration, I'm growing frustration. He helped me understand that mindfulness isn't just about paying attention, it's about how we pay attention, with kindness. He said it's like these loving arms that welcome everything, even the messy, imperfect parts of ourselves. He also pointed out that we're practicing all the time, moment by moment, not just when we're meditating, but in every moment. We're growing something in every moment. So the question really becomes, what do you want to grow? What do you want to practice?
I hate hippies. Yeah, basically it's a combination of Tibetan meditation, New Age touchy-feely hippie shit, filtered through the Heaven's Gate, and sipping deeply of the Kool-Aid. Which, apparently, you can learn and become accredited in just by shelling out $450 Canadian and taking a 4-weekend university course. Yeah, they teach this shit in our universities. Remember, Frank is certified and accredited. I'll leave some links and information in below, as well as a link to my video on cults and how they operate for comparison, but I suggest watching especially the Sharon Shapiro video. It's 15 minutes of middle-aged hippie Barbie saying absolutely nothing with a disturbingly vacant serenity that screams mind-washed completely clean. Anyways, through Now House, you can pay for classes, workshops, and seminars in things like guided meditation, stress relief, and relinquishing your worldly goods to Lord Zentaur of Planet Klaxon. After looking through all manner of websites and other source material, I could never manage to find anything or anyone actually giving a clear description of what mindfulness and learning about mindfulness actually entails. So, I took the liberty of watching a few classes myself, and I can totally tell you what mindfulness class really is. It's a prayer meeting. It's a prayer meeting for people who don't pray. That's it. With a little dash of pseudoscience and Buddhist meditation thrown in for the hipster rubes. I actually plan to elaborate on this more in a future video. According to Frank's Now House webpage, mindfulness is a cure for just about everything that might ail you. It eases anxiety, decreases depression, addiction to drugs and alcohol, increases concentration, creativity, and sporting ability. On the more physical side, it boosts energy and stamina, decreases inflammation and the frequency severity of many physical ailments, blood pressure, heart disease, improves motor skills and coordination, increases recovery from injury. Oh, come on, they just stole that shit from Daredevil.
Your deep down inside feelings.
How?
Meditate.
You mean that thing where you pretend not to sleep?
Yeah, that one. Open yourself up to it. Learn it. Make you way stronger, more focused. Even heal your wounds faster.
It also has many workplace benefits. Increased job satisfaction, work productivity, confidence, increases curiosity and reduces self-criticism, increases social awareness, and enhances skills and leadership.
I'm dumbfounded that you folks haven't heard about the concoction in this here bottle. Why, it's the newest sensation to sweep the nation. It's wall drug snake oil, and it's changing people's lives. Man in the last town bought a bottle, and within 3 hours he was back for more. He said he ain't never seen something that could attract so many women and still rid his barn of vermin. All in the same bottle. Believe it, folks, this here snake oil works. It attracts the opposite sex, thins your blood, exterminates pesky critters, and cures all known skin maladies. What more could you ask for, other than maybe a bottle for your own self? What do you say?
That's certainly some powerful stuff that Frank's selling. I can't believe that everybody hasn't discovered this incredible, wonderful cure-all that would improve the lives of all of humanity. I also can't believe that despite Now House's boasting of the ever-increasing body of research that praises the benefits of mindfulness, Now House suspiciously cites none of them.
Wait! Listen! My specialties are audiology, mycology, serology, teratology, embryology, psychology, zoology, and any other ology you can think of!
What I can believe, however, is that their website makes no mention of the fact that many people who have tried to practice this mindfulness thing have reported suffering mental breakdowns, bouts of depression, and other mental health problems triggered by the process. A small-scale study done by David Shapiro in 1992, which for the record I have not personally confirmed, found that out of the groups he studied, 63% of the people who tried mindfulness reported at least one adverse mental effect from the meditation retreat, while 7% experienced severe and long-term psychological issues, such as anxiety, depression, panic attacks, and bouts of alcoholism and drug abuse. 1992 was about the best I could do on short notice because it seems as though no one is actually bothering to really look into the negative side effects of mindfulness much. Much of it is anecdotal reports by people who claim to have suffered severe adverse reactions to the process. Because, who would have thought that messing with someone's psychological functions, with no actual psychological training, no oversight, and no qualifications except a few weekends of training, might possibly lead to bad side effects for the people paying for your services? Well, that's about enough of this for today. I'm tired of talking about this guy. I'll leave the last word to Frank himself. Frank, do you have anything to say to justify how you could possibly be running all of these dishonest scams? Well put. So, about a month ago, we had this event in my city that infested both my hometown itself and my newsfeed like a cancerous malignancy. It's called Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, and was inflicted on us by the YWCA, who hosted the day-long tribute to the laziest transvestites in the world. Over 400 men pranced out that day in September to raise awareness for all of the billions of women who are abused and raped every day by the evil men who live in our man's world and do oppressive man stuff in dark, manly ways. And did we mention that all men are inhuman monsters who brutalize women yet? Because it's one of the subtle messages conveyed on the Walk a Mile website. I mean, to be fair, there are some instances where the site goes a whole paragraph without telling us how men, and it is only men, beat and rape women, and it is only women. But hey, if you're willing to put on a pair of red high heels and debase yourself for the amusement of your ovarian betters, they will graciously permit you to virtue signal for at least a little while and pretend that you're not the theoretical offspring of Jack the Ripper and that smelly trenchcoat guy on the subway. Which may very well be the main thing about the guys that do this that make me want to permanently revoke their man cards. Okay, the second thing. But really, do these idiots not actually realize that they are willingly taking part in something that effectively labels all men as being walking rape machines? Or do they just not realize that Walk a Mile means them too when it says men, because by taking part in this so-called charity, they think that they've reached the mythical one good man status that I've heard tell of in stories. Anyways,